Ever implemented a change in your company's IT infrastructure only to have it backfire and cause chaos? Change management is critical to ensuring smooth transitions, but without the right approach, even small changes can lead to big problems. In this video, we'll show you the best practices for the change management, from risk analysis and planning to user acceptance and fallback plans. Ready to master the art of seamless IT changes? Let's dive in. Implementation of change management best practices. In this part, we will look at the best practices for change management. Change management. Change management is a discipline of IT service or infrastructure management in companies. Well, the goal is to ensure that standardized methods and procedures are used in a safe and cost-effective manner. All this with the aim of minimizing the number and impact of change-related incidents. Document the change process. Let's start with documenting the change process. It's always important to document a change, especially in a company. One of your tasks as an IT support technician is to familiarize yourself with the company's existing documentation, resources, and repositories. Any company with a change management process is going to have its own specific method for implementing changes. Objective of the change. Let us now move on to the objective of the change. As an IT support technician, no company will ever give you new equipment or validate a change without clearly defining the need. It is therefore important to identify the purpose of any change, i.e., what it brings to services and infrastructure. It will also help limit the scope of change and prevent it from being unnecessarily larger than it should be. Scope of change. The scope of the change precisely defines what the change affects, who is affected, and when. This may include an inventory of all the systems involved, the number of people involved in the change, how long the change will take, and also, often, the estimated cost of the change. Another part of the scope of a change is to create a detailed list of what won't change and what old equipment will then have to go. Risk analysis. Let's look at the risk analysis this time. Any change to a service or infrastructure involves risk. Good change management therefore requires a risk analysis, a detailed assessment of the problems that could result from the change. In order to determine the risks, it is important to ask yourself certain questions such as, what if the upgrade fails? Has the change been tested in simulation? Is the new equipment adequate? Change planning. Now that we know how to analyze the risks, let's see how to plan for this change. Successful planning is therefore important for all stakeholders to understand and be aware of the changes that will occur. Even small changes should have a well-planned implementation. During the planning process, there are questions to ask yourself such as, what needs to be done before change begins? What should you buy? Where will the new equipment that has not been installed be stored? What days will we implement this change? During what period? User acceptance. Now, let's look at how to help users accept the changes. One element of successful change management is educating end users to easily adapt to new systems. The aim is to train users in the use of the new system. After all, it's the users who ultimately dictate the success or failure of a change. It is for this reason that we have mentioned at the planning stage that it is important that all stakeholders be informed of the changes. Advisory Board. Let us now move on to another item, the Advisory Council on Change. Since this is the change, it is important to have a team to evaluate, approve, or reject the change you are proposing. The team is therefore reviewing all documentation in order to make a decision on this change. This team is generally composed of IT representatives, one or more change leaders, managers and user groups, technical experts and possible third parties, and sometimes also clients. Fallback plan. Now let's move on to the fallback plan, also known as Plan B. There is always a risk that a change will cause malfunctions during or after the process. Unfortunately, it is not possible to identify all the risks that can occur during a change. So, it's important to think of a plan. To do this, we must ask ourselves the question, what if this change is a failure? The answer is to have an exit plan. It is an integration approach that specifies the processes required to restore a system to its original state in the event that the change implementation fails. It happens more often than you think. The retirement plan therefore sets out the steps needed to restore the infrastructure to the pre-change state. Document edits. And finally, the last point that we are going to see in this course is the modification of the documents related to the changes implemented. Documenting changes to a service is paramount in any type of change management process. Each step of a change requires documentation. This is because once the change has been implemented, you need to make sure that everyone is informed about what has changed in the organization. For example, there may be documentation in the help desk that you can update with versions or new server names. In a year or more, you may not remember these changes. Having documentation can help you understand how you got to where you are and where you are today. And with the documentation of the changes, we can start to look at what the differences in performance are. We can analyze the documentation to make future decisions with full knowledge of the current infrastructure.